I have the great honor of having Lori Shaneman, our board chair, join me tonight to share with you about the partnership that happens between administrations and boards. And I personally just want to say that I feel so grateful to have such a dedicated and talented group of trustees led by Lori as our board chair. She's just stepped into this role on July 1, taking over from Chris Weiler, who had been board chair and is still on the board, but stepped back from his role as chair. Lori previously was chair of the board at Swain when before they merged with Moravian in 2020. And our current board is comprised of trustees that were part of the original Swain board and part of the Moravian board, as well as new trustees that have joined us since. And so our goal tonight is to demystify the role of the board at our school and answer any questions you might have. We have a little presentation that we're going to share with you. And at the end, we'll open it up for Q&A. You're welcome to pop questions in the chat. Bob Zeiser, our Director of Institutional Advancement, my great partner and friend, will be monitoring the chat for those questions and will help facilitate that Q&A at the end. And Bob, I need your help to let me screen share. Thank you. And I knew we were having more people join in. I hope everybody's having a great evening and able to.
There you go. You can go right now.
All right. See what I have. Okay. Here we go. All right. There you go. So I'm going to turn it over to Lori to get us started about the role of the board in an independent school.
Thank you, Adrienne. And thank you so much for inviting me tonight on behalf of the Board of Trustees. It's great to be here. And like Adrienne said, demystify sort of what do we do, and give you the opportunity to hear about that. So this is great. And we're happy to see some familiar faces on the call tonight. And with that, we have a little slideshow to present. So, we started out here by just saying, what does it mean to be an independent school? Moravian Academy is classified as an independent school. So it means that we're governed independently from, from like public school system or the state schools. And we have majority of our funding is our own funds. So, it means that we're basically free of regulation other than, having to adhere to state laws and things like that. And we are a 501c3 not-for-profit organization. And, first and foremost, we follow the mission of the school. And that is the work that everyone that works here, or in the case of the board that volunteers here, always goes back to and adheres to that mission.
And I'll just add to that, Lori, thank you, that, one of the beauties of being an independent school and free of that regulation is that because we don't take state funds or federal funds, we have a lot of freedom to pursue the curriculum that we pursue and we feel is best for our students. And we're also not held to some of the testing standards that have been the norm at public schools. And many public school teachers will say that that is one of the most challenging aspects because they end up spending a lot of their time just prepping kids to take tests. And so instead of prepping kids for taking tests, we can teach them to be their best. And I think that's a real gift of the independent school education. As Lori mentioned, as an independent school, we follow a mission. And our mission and vision is set by our board of trustees. They are the owners of that, if you will. And anytime the mission changes, that happens from our Board of Trustees. Our current mission is here. I'm not going to read it all out for you. Our vision is here for you. That was all most recently revised in 2021 after the merger between Swain and Moravian Academy. And it was always envisioned to be somewhat of a transitional mission statement when the school went through that merger, to recognize that there were many things that our schools had in common, and we needed a mission and vision that served as this pathway through that commonality that we have across our campuses. And so there's probably a little bit more wordy of a mission statement than many are. And in fact, that's some of the feedback that the school has received, that it would be nice to have a little bit more of a concise mission and vision. And just recently, the task force that was formed by the board has been asked to reconvene to do just that. And so I expect during this school year, we will be sharing with the community a new mission and vision. And these will still remain true to the original ones, but really just with the idea of being much more concise. The mission is all about what is our purpose, what it's kind of the who, what, why of what we do at a school. And the vision is our ultimate goal of, if we're doing all of that well, if we're fulfilling our mission, here is what happens. That's the vision. And again, that will be news to you as we work through that this year, and you'll learn more about what that revision is somewhere during the year. A couple of key facts of our school. Our enrollment is just over 900 students across our 3 campuses. I think you all know that both the Swain and historic downtown campus are the preschool through 8th grade, and the Merle Smith campus is just our high school. We are a member of several different associations, and these are really important for us because they provide a lot of support, a lot of professional development, and resources as we run our school. So the National Association of Independent Schools is the largest member organization of independent schools. It's actually international. It's not just national. There are schools from all across the globe that are part of NAIS. They put on an annual conference each year that provides a lot of professional development and speakers and resources for people who go to that. But one of the key things that we take advantage of regularly is data. We make a lot of decisions based on data, and we're a data-driven institution. And they provide a tool called Dazzle, which is data and analytics for school leaders, that provides benchmarking information for us. So if we want to know how well are we performing in relation to our peer schools, we can pull up that data and do some comparison and benchmarking. We are also a member of the Pennsylvania Association of Independent Schools, which is also our accrediting body. And you may recall that we recently went through a reaccreditation process, which is a very thorough process. We're accredited by them, as well as the Middle States Association of Colleges and Schools. And so we received a double accreditation, and we're fully reaccredited for another 10 years. So very excited to announce that that went super smooth, and they were very impressed with all that we are doing at Moravian Academy. The final organization I wanted to mention here is the Association of Delaware Valley Schools. And we maintain memberships in these 3 different organizations for just a lot of the resources, networking, professional development that is available, not only to our administrators, but to our faculty and staff, as well as to our trustees. Now, speaking of the trustees, there are 3 major functions of the board, and I'm going to just highlight them here, and Lori's going to go into more detail. Most people think about the fiduciary aspect of trustees, that they have this fiduciary role to protect the school. So that's the one that most people are most familiar with. Strategy, obviously, that's pretty obvious, setting the strategy for the school. And we're next month going to be launching our new strategic plan that many of you might have been involved in through design teams. We had a lot of community engagement that led to the creation of our strategic plan, including from students. We had students on our strategic plan executive committee who were fabulous. But that strategic plan also has to get approved by the board. And so that recently happened, and we'll be rolling that out shortly. And then the last aspect is generative leadership. So I'm going to let Lori go into the details of these, or the fiduciary.
Okay, so some of the fiduciary functions of the board are, around duties of loyalty, and just general care for the school. And what does that mean? It means the ability to put the school first. So, we leave our any of our own interests at the door when we show up for board and committee work, and we put the school first during that time. And, one of the main fiduciary functions is financial. So, the board really takes a look at the finances and the risk management of the school to make sure that we're in compliance. We have a regular audit of the school, and, anything like that would be functions of the board that we need to make sure are, going in the proper direction and functioning the way they should. And I think the biggest thing that we talk about as trustees is what it's not. And what it's not is managing any kind of operations of the school. So anything day to day, anything, that is personnel related, anything that has to do with students, parents, any kind of goings on activities of the school, complaints that would come in, anything like that, that is completely under the purview of the administration and is the responsibility of the head of school. So the board is kind of like more up here at a 30,000 foot level, really looking at the future of the school, looking at the real big picture things. And we, need to stay out of any of that day-to-day activity. So we have listed as 3 of the main fiduciary duties would be the duty of care, which I talked about, which is just acting in good faith, always kind of leaving anything else at the door and making sure that you're making decisions that are aligned with, aligned with the good things that you should be doing for the school. The loyalty is, confidentiality is very important, and that we're doing things that are in the best interest of the school. And again, it's leaving any kind of self-interest out of it. And the last one is obedience, which is, again, making sure that we always go back to the mission of the school. And when we make decisions, we want to consult that mission. So it's always, top of mind. The next one is about the duty of care. And that is acting with common sense, good judgment, and being apprised of what's going on inside the school. We get reports, to know all of the things that the leadership team and the administration are doing, all of their good work. We get reports about any of the major things going on. So we need to do all that reading and keep apprised of it. Showing up for events that the school may have, making sure there's a board presence at those. And then we have 6 board meetings during the year, and we have a retreat. And, attendance is expected from the trustees at all of our meetings. In addition to that, each trustee serves on at least one committee, and they will be attending their committee meetings throughout the year where a lot of the work gets done. And also, as part of duty of care, it's something where we should be asking the questions. If they're coming to mind, and if we see something and there's a good question, we should be asking it. We should be having those good discussions with one another, as well as with Adrienne and her team. And above all, confidentiality, everything that happens in a board meeting or, board functions, confidentiality is a high level because there are a variety of things that can come up. And it's important that they stay, confidential within the trustees when there are issues like that. Next, we have duty of loyalty, which again means that the trustees should be acting in good faith and in the interest first and foremost of the school, and especially not to benefit, their own personal interest in any way for their business, their financial interests, or anything like that. We do sign, each trustee signs a conflict of interest policy that we have, and we re-sign that every year. And so that helps us to manage those. And I think that's it on that front, unless Adrian, you can think of something I've missed. Okay. Duty of obedience has to do with maintaining a focus, again, on the mission of the school. So everything that I do, and I think most trustees do, we always go back to that, the mission of the school. And like Adrian said, they're taking a look at the mission right now to try to make it even more clear, because I would love to, and I think every trustee would love to be able to clearly recite the mission, right off the cuff. And so I think that they're working to try to get something like that down so that we could all, we know what the mission is, but be able to always have it there, top of mind and tip of tongue, right? So another part of this is never diverting the school resources away from that mission and away from the work that we're doing in the near term and in the long term. And of course, always be adhering to the laws. There are a variety of laws that we need to make sure that we're operating within, and compliance is big. And we have an audit committee on the board, and they primarily take care of that.
Thank you, Lori. There are a lot of fiduciary responsibilities of trustees, so you had lots of slides to cover. So the next major aspect of the work of the trustees is strategy, as I mentioned before. This looks like planning, building, looking forward. It is all rooted in the mission of the school, but it's, taking that step back and looking longer term. And as Lori was saying previously, this is the focus of the board. It isn't the day-to-day, it's the long term. And there was a quote that somebody shared with me last year that I thought really spoke to the role of the board in such a succinct way. It says that the job of the board is to protect the future from the present. Right? So that just, I think, helps encapsulate, this is where the board should be focused. It's always looking ahead and like, what should we be thinking about? And when Lori shares the different board committees, we actually have a brand new board committee that is really laser focused on that she'll share. The last aspect is the generative leadership. So this relates to the planning, the fundraising, our generative leadership related to behavior and commitment. It's problem solving, it's providing direction and vision. This is different though from the day-to-day stuff that the senior leadership team and I work on together. We try to have an aspect of each board meeting that has some sort of generative question. And there might be a case study, for example, of something that has happened in other schools, and having a conversation among trustees about that case study and how we might respond to it. And it is a really great practice to explore, well, how would we respond to this? And what is the role of the board? And what is the role of the administration? Because sometimes the lines can be a little bit gray. But if we talk about these and we're really explicit, okay, this is the area that is shared, and fundraising is one of those areas that is very much shared between the board and the administration. because of that fiduciary role the board has. And fundraising is a big aspect to our overall financial health as an institution. We have to raise funds in order to keep the school as cost effective as possible, in order to support our mission to be an economically diverse student body, and to provide all the great things that people expect when they enroll their children at Moravian. So that's a generative aspect of leadership for the board. And the board also would approve any fundraising campaign that we might. I can't just on a whim say, hey, let's do a capital campaign to go and, build this or do that. That is the work of the board, and they have to approve it with this big picture. That generative leadership is part of what they do. Back to you, Lori.
Thank you. So this slide is a really important slide, especially for me, I think, and Adrian. So this is about the relationship between the head of school and the board chair. In this case, it's the two of us. And both she and I, through the years, have been through quite a number of trainings through the National Association for Independent Schools, as well as have done reading and networking. So, we put a lot of time and invested ourselves into being able to do our roles well. And then this summer, we also put some time in together to do a workshop on how we, the two of us, are going to work together. And so putting all that time in, I think, really pays off when it comes to actually getting down and doing the day-to-day work that, or a week-to-week type of work that the head of school and board chair do. So, together, first and foremost, we work together to implement the school's mission and the vision. And as you heard, the strategic plan, which is coming, the board endorses that. And we also work to help support Adrian in her work of rolling that out. We also share responsibility for planning a variety of things. And, aside from the strategic plan, like planning of the board, the work of the board, the committees, the structures. In this case, we talked about, doing a new mission statement, maybe like Adrian mentioned, maybe a campaign, things like this is what the kind of planning work that we do together. And then together we oversee the financial resources of the school. And, that's a huge responsibility that we don't just do, the two of us. We have a wonderful treasurer and a finance committee chair. And I think we're going to see later on the slides of the different committees. So I'll talk a little bit more about what some of those other people do. And the school has a CFO. So we all work together, overseeing those resources and making sure that they're put to proper use and planned for. We have the next point is sometimes responsibilities blur. I think that doesn't happen so often because we try very hard to not do that, but there will be a time maybe where one might want the other's help with something that is just where we're supposed to be in a lane. So what we've done is we've developed sort of a way that we communicate to help, make those decisions and to help work through certain things. So, again, that's all about the training and the pre-work that a head and a chair do together to make sure that when the time comes for that kind of communication, you can have that trust and that openness. And then above all else, together present a united front to the school and to the community at large. Because, if a board and a chair, if the board chair and the head of school aren't working together and aren't getting along or something, you're going to know it. So we work very hard to maintain that and keep that and make sure that we're always focused on what lies ahead.
Thank you, Lori. And I'll just add before I go to the next slide, our board of trustees are unbelievably dedicated to this school. none of them are paid. They're volunteering their time for this, just out of their love for the school and wanting to see it thrive. And we are very fortunate to have such diverse members of our board that have a variety of expertise. And that's part of the work of the governance committee. They look for individuals who represent a lot of different skill sets that are needed, but all of them donate their time and expertise to the school. And they also lead philanthropically as well. We are really very blessed to have very generous trustees who know that part of the responsibility is to support all of our fundraising campaigns in a way that is meaningful to them, and to make it a priority while they're on the board to support the philanthropic goals of the school. But like I said, the key thing here just that I want to convey is just the immense dedication of our trustees. And Lori in particular, as board chair, this is a thankless job. It is just hours and hours that she dedicates to the school, because she loves it so much and wants it to succeed. And she spent a lot of time this summer meeting individually with trustees to get us prepared to launch this new school year together. And I'm thrilled to say that our board is incredibly aligned and supportive of the entire administration and the institution. And so as head of school, I am very lucky to have that support of the board. And oftentimes when things go awry at other schools that I have seen, it's because there has been a disconnect between a head of school and the board or a board chair. And so the work that we do together is so important because of that trust that has to happen in terms of understanding what the role of the board is and what the role of the head is. And so in my role as head of school, I serve as somewhat of a CEO, like would in a corporation. So I run the school. I have an amazing team of people that work with me to make sure that our complex and large, school that's large by independent school standards runs really, really well. So I'm very fortunate to have Armistead Webster as our associate head of school. He serves in the role that's akin to a provost at a university as chief academic officer. He and I partner very well. I lead the senior leadership team, which is comprised of our campus directors, our director of institutional advancement, our director of marketing and communications, strategic partnerships and external programs, our CFOO, the director of community inclusion and belonging, and our campus directors. That team meets every week. Even though we're on 3 different campuses, we meet by Zoom to keep it all going. And we also have an educational leadership team, which is led by Armistead Webster. And that is comprised of our campus directors and the assistant directors. And I serve on that team and he leads. He serves on the senior leadership team and I lead. But there's a lot of trust, a very, very high functioning group, and a lot of give and take that is super healthy. I'm really grateful to have such a high functioning team with great emotional intelligence. And it is my job to make sure that our trustees have all the information that they need in order to make good decisions on behalf of the school. They will make decisions. We will sometimes make recommendations to them, but our job is that they have the information they need to make those decisions. And our CFOO and the treasurer, so CFOO is an administrator and the treasurer is a board member, volunteer board member who also chairs the finance committee. We work together to develop and monitor the school budget and keep the board updated on the finances of the school. Back to you, Lori. Or wait, this is me. Okay, sorry. You get the one after this. So here you go. This is the great team of people I have been talking about that serve on our board for the 23-24 school year. We have an executive committee of the board that is made up of the officers of the corporation, as you see to the left, as well as a couple of additional individuals that they invite to serve as kind of floating members of the executive committee. And as Lori said, each trustee serves on at least one committee. And before she talks about those committees, I just want to bring your attention to the diversity of this group. We have alumni, we have parents, we have parents of alumni, and our parents, by the way, represent individuals who have students at all three campuses. So all three campuses are represented. There is no position on the board that is by proxy. It's a representation. Every trustee is representing that future student, right? So they're not representing in any constituency. So when they come into the boardroom, they're taking off that parent hat or they're taking off that alumni hat and they're thinking about the future of the school. But we're lucky to have alumni from many different decades, as you can see here on our board, and many independent school boards have an abundance of parents and not other representation. As I mentioned, we have not only parents, but alumni and parents of alumni, but we also have community representatives. And some of the individuals on our board are on our board because they are Moravians. And our bylaws actually call for having Moravian representation on our board. So we work with the Synod of the Moravian Church to identify people to serve. And they always bring great perspectives. Dan Seuss is one of those individuals. He's the executive director of Bethlehem Area Moravians, and so has a lot of information of what's going on, for example, with the proposal for the historic Bethlehem to be named a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So that might be something that will impact us if it goes through. It will impact us. Carol Devi Schachter, class of 76, is also the daughter of David Devi, who was the first headmaster of the merged Moravian Preparatory Academy and Moravian Seminary for girls. But she actually is not on the board because she's an alum. She's representing Moravians. So we're, again, very lucky to have the representation that we have on the board.
Yeah, and Adrian, in fact, I was looking at the list and 10 of them are not current parents, a little more than half of the board. So that's a little bit fascinating. And they are a really diverse group of people, and they're a wonderful group of humans. And they bring all kinds of skill sets. And it's something that we look at when we bring on new trustees is what skill set maybe are we lacking, or what do we need coming up? And we specifically look for someone maybe who fills that role. So there's a lot of thought that goes into that. And we're very fortunate to have people that are willing to just volunteer their, what we call their time, talent, and treasure. And we so appreciate that. The school appreciates that. And I am grateful to be able to work with this group of people. They're fun too. So that makes it better.
We try to have a good time.
Yeah, it makes it a lot better. And so, this is kind of our last slide of the night, which is about the board committees. And Adrian already talked about the executive committee. And then a committee that reports up to the executive committee is called the Head Support and Evaluation Committee. And that committee is basically what it says. They're there to support the head, and they meet like every other month or so, and exist really for Adrian, and then for the fact that they are the instrument and the tool of the board that conducts that evaluation process. Then another important committee is the Finance Committee. And, that committee really, it does oversee all of the finances of the school. Committee meets on a regular basis and takes a look at, the regular reporting of the school. profit and loss statements, things such as this, as well as we have an investment advisory committee that reports up, to finance, and they basically are looking at and helping to manage our endowment, which we use an outside organization for. But we have our own committee, which meets regularly so they can focus on making sure that the endowment is invested, properly, and we're getting the right amount of returns. And the finance committee will, they report out, to the board on the financial, all the financial aspects of the school. So there might be, things that we need to provide more detail on. So they'll work on those things. Then we have the governance committee. So that committee is focused on, again, the recruitment of new trustees, taking a look at the diversity and the skill sets of the trustees, how it's best used. Also would be focused on the education of the trustees. So, when we have a new trustee come in, we don't just say, welcome to the party. It's, they have to also study a bit, train a bit, get to know these best practices, but also really get to know the school. And it's a complex school. We have 3 campuses. There's a lot to learn and get to know. So governance helps with that and helps make sure that we stay in our lane, right? And maintain all those things. So they might help to organize reminder trainings for, or update trainings for people that have been on the board for 10 years, to make sure that we know what the current practices are and that we're adhering to all the best ones. Then we have the audit committee of the board, and the audit committee basically, their main duty is to review the audit that gets done through an independent financial accounting firm that comes in and does an audit, much like those of you that might be familiar with how you would do it for your own business or a corporation. They come in and do that and then present it to our audit committee. And the audit committee would also, have anything else to do with that type of, Adrian, how would I say it? The governance of the school.
They also would be the ones if there's a whistleblower complaint.
Yeah, the whistleblower.
For
Okay.
example, that
Mhm.
would, that is a fiduciary piece. They would be the ones that would be charged with looking into that.
Right. So then they would convene on something more so special, but their regular duty is really to review and present that audit to the board. Then, so buildings and grounds is a committee that really focuses on the facilities that we have. And that's a pretty complex job because it's, like we said, it's 3 campuses, and on most campuses, there are many buildings or many pieces and parts.
And historic buildings.
Yes, and historic buildings is true. And fields and all those things. So, they take a look at that. They make sure that we're looking at what needs to happen for those existing buildings, deferred maintenance, anything like that. They don't necessarily do the operations work. That's for the school, but they might be looking at, leases or mortgages or big things like replacement of a roof and things like this that come up, bigger, more strategic decisions that might need to be made, as well as if there are any, anything that would come under master planning of the school. So if we're thinking about something that aligns with the strategy, and how do we do that in a building or on the grounds, the property? How do we best use that space? And so they will help with that work because that's strategic and forward-looking work. And then this year Adrian and I've worked over the summer with people who have graciously taken on sharing the roles of 3 new committees, one of which is advancement. And advancement is, they look at the advancement of the school primarily as it relates to fundraising and giving. So, they're going to be looking at a lot of different things. They're just getting their work started, and they'll work closely with Bob Zeiser, who's on the call, and really make sure that the board is invested in this work, because the board needs to partner with the school on the work of advancing the school in every aspect, especially with fundraising. I know it's not the appropriate place to talk about all of that comes with that, but there's certain goals that the board is going to help with this year, like helping to grow our EITC program. And you've probably heard of that. If you haven't, we're not going to get into it tonight, but definitely look it up, because it's yet another great way that you could support the school if you're not already doing that. And we're really fortunate to have a new trustee that is chairing advancement. And her name is Tori Atchison, and she comes to us from, I think over the past decade, maybe or longer, maybe like 12 years, she's been doing the work, leading the Parents Council at Lehigh University. And so she's very versed in and lives in the world of philanthropy for education. And in addition to that, she happens to be an alum and also is parent of alum children. And so, we're just thrilled that she's partnering with us on this work, and she's going to help take the school, I'm sure, places in regard to that. And then another committee is DEI. It's actually DEIB, I think. And that committee is diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. And so, why is that the board's work? It's the board's work too, and the board should be leading this work. So we felt strongly, I feel really strongly about making sure that we get to a place where this school is a place where everyone in the community can feel that they belong, right? And I know Adrian shares in that. So wanted to make sure that that work is led from the board, and that the whole school understands that the board is participating in this work, and we're doing our own work. So a lot of what we're doing this year is just providing even more education to the trustees on what best practices look like, on where we want to be and how we're going to get there. So that's a little slice of that. And the last one is the most still like somewhat elusive, because we're still figuring it out. And it's one that even NAIS doesn't have a lot of resources around, but it's called Emerging Trends. And we're fortunate to have Chris Weiler, who was our board chair. He really wanted to do this work, and this is his baby right now, and he's just getting started. And he's going to be looking at what are some trends in the independent school industry, and maybe even what are some things that are going on in our greater community that we could be taking more advantage of, or that we could delve into, with the goal of advancing the mission, and of what could enhance the student experience, and what could enhance things for the community members, the faculty, and make our school, a place where people can't wait to come work here, from all around the world. And that, students, they want to come here, that they're not here already. They see that, wow, we have got to get there. They're doing this amazing work. So Emerging Trends is going to help identify those things. And then from time to time, so they're all the standing committees of the board that meet on a regular basis. And the task forces are something that happens for a period of time. Maybe you put a task force into place for like a year for one specific purpose, that the purpose is going to have an end to it, and then you can move on from it. For example, like it's a strategic planning task force. That work was put into place at the beginning of last school year, and then it concluded before the end of this, really at the end of this school year. And so something like that. And now we just convened for the board task force, the mission and vision. And they would just be doing the work of revising and helping to come out with and write a new mission and vision for the school. And then when that's complete, they will be closed. So that's what a task force of the school is. The board has bylaws of the school, and we operate within the bylaws, and each committee has a charter. So it's something that any of the trustees could go back to, but especially that committee chair. If you're on the committee, you can go back to the charter if you're not sure if what you're doing is under your purview. And from time to time, we relook at the charters and the bylaws and, adjust them and change them so that we can keep current with where we are today.